A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive?
The world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure? Murder. From the twisted mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadow Play in Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm anticlimactic Anthony.
And I'm raving against this movie, Ray.
And I'm Rumpole of the Bailey, and I'll be policing these gentlemen's reviews this evening for proper etiquette and punctuation. Not to mention respect for the English language. Continue. Thank you, Rumpole. So we do have Rumpole of the Bailey on tonight as a sort of watchdog. We've had some reports against us with the grammar and syntax police. So
And rampant nudity.
yeah, rampant nudity. Ray, put your shirt on. Not your pants, just your shirt. Yeah, there you go. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, easy, Rumpole. So, guys, how the hell's it going?
Pretty good. It's going
I'm
pretty
good.
Good.
Yeah. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. So, we got a lot to cover, I think. There are like a couple bigger viewings that I wish could have ended up being like individual reaction episodes, but it didn't work that way. I totally fumbled last week with the Night House, which Ray and I went to see in the theater, and just whatever. So we're just where do you guys want to start? There's some stuff that we've all seen, some stuff that'll be individual. Ray, did you get to watch Sator?
I didn't.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Then I don't think we have a common one amongst the three of us. So if y'all don't mind, let's begin with the Night House, because I feel like that's the furthest back in my memory. And Ray and I went to see that last week at an AMC. That was my first big box, like I've been to a couple screenings at smaller theaters where nobody's there. I was at a private screening, but this was my return. I know, Ray, you've been to the theater a couple times since things opened back up, and it was an acceptable scenario all across the board. So we were able to really focus on the movie. Ray, what did you think of The Night House by David Bruckner?
I mean, overall, I liked it. I think it's a little bit slow moving, and it is more a supernatural thriller than it is a horror movie. But it's very well acted. Rebecca Hall does a great job, like because she's pretty much carrying the film kind of all on her own. And there's a lot of moments where it's just because of her isolation, being at this home by herself and like hearing weird noises or weird stuff starts happening, that it's all based around her reaction. And I think she does a great job of not just being like screaming at every little thing or like being like, oh, startled. She does a great job. And she's also, what's the word I'm thinking of? She's been through a lot, but she still does this great job of being this like sarcastic and interesting character on screen.
Definitely. I recently, after we watched it, I read in the latest issue of Fangoria, which is number 12. There's Radio Silence interviews Bruckner, David Bruckner, the director, and then conversely on, I think it's the latest or one of the latest episodes of the podcast Colors of the Dark, they interview the screenwriters, Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski. And so based on information from all three of these gentlemen, one of the things, I guess, so Ben and Luke brought up on the podcast that you really, she's not, like you say, she carries the movie, but also they do an interesting thing with this movie where when they said this, I was like, that's it exactly. It's how I felt. Some of the time you feel like you're her, and some of the time you feel detached from her, like you're watching your friend spiral out of control. Would you say that's a fair way? Like that it kind of shifts perception with the character?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I thought that was
That
really
is interesting. Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
It's seamless the way that they do it. And I had to think about it. But I think one of the things to that is I really feel like the supporting actress, Sarah Goldberg, who people will know from Barry, if you've seen Barry, which she's great in, but this is a different thing for her. And I feel like she really helped add to that, because you do get the sense through her, and even some of the, there's the scene in the bar where it's like they're all sitting around talking after work, right? It's like, oh, why don't you come out? I mean, I guess the setup here, and I don't want to give too much away, but so Rebecca Hall is Beth, and the movie starts basically her husband has committed suicide from out of nowhere. He was a successful architect. He built the house that they live in, which is on a lake, and there was just no warning signs. And so you're picking up with the movie where she's just come from the funeral, and she's very angry and sad. I'd say almost more angry.
Yeah. Oh,
and
understandably so. Yeah.
Understandably so, right? There was no signs or whatever. So, with Sarah Goldberg's, she works with her at the school where their teachers, Claire is the character Sarah plays. Oh, come out with us. We're going to go drinking. So it's like them and two other coworkers. And you really get a sense there of this unbridled fury in Beth's character. And so I also think that fury is what shifts. So I think going by that idea that you're with her, sometimes you're her and sometimes you're watching her from close by, I think that fury separates us from her, and that it separates us in a way because it's almost like, whoa, like you are feeling what the people around her are feeling, like, holy shit, like this is caustic. I shouldn't have said that. Constantly the one guy at the table in the bar keeps like, I'm sorry. He keeps like apologizing for asking questions that maybe he shouldn't ask. And she's fine answering them because she kind of, she wants to talk about it. She wants answers. And I thought that was really interesting that her fury, the way it's on display, is not something we're used to see. Anybody's used to seeing from somebody who's bereaved. So it doesn't alienate us. Like, it doesn't alienate us as a viewer from the character of the movie, but it alienates us the way, like, if you were sitting in that bar with her, you would feel like, oh man, like super awkward, whatever. And that really then kind of feeds into her isolation, so that, like you said, she carries a lot of the movie, and just, it's like her descent into this weird world her husband had been living in that she had no idea about. And I will say, like, I really liked the movie. And one of the things I really liked about it is it doesn't go anywhere near where you think it's going. Like, the trailer gives you absolutely, I thought the trailer, I was thinking like, man, I feel like maybe this is giving away too much. I didn't see where did you see where this was going? Like with the overall, where the story goes?
No.
So kudos. Also, I will say these are the guys doing the next Hellraiser movie, and you could see it in here. There's an element of Hellraiser that's kind of at play in here, or a similar element. So that makes me really excited for Hellraiser.
Very cool. Huh.
Any other thoughts, or should we move on?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I think you touched on a lot of things. It's a very good points there. I mean, um, yeah, it's just it's not a it's I thought from the trailer that it was gonna be like a haunted house movie.
Mhm.
But it's not. It's not a haunted house movie. It's something else entirely. Um, I guess one thing that I thought about, it reminded me a little bit of a, I still need to finish that book. It's just such a labyrinth of a book, ironically. It
House
reminded me
of
a little bit of
Leaves.
House of Leaves. And
Yeah.
uh and the fact that, like, that movie has been made, that the film Dave Made a Maze has been made. Um I'm really waiting. I kind of want somebody to see about either. I don't think cinematically it would work. Maybe as a TV series, I would just like to see someone try to tackle the material that is
It'd be
House of
interesting.
Leaves,
It would
because
be
it'd
interesting. It
be
could be done
really
as a TV
interesting to
show
watch. Yeah, I think it could be done as a TV show.
because there's multiple narrative strains in it. So and
Yes.
different levels of meta and whatnot. So I think like you
Yeah.
follow different people. I think it would work if the right
Yeah.
person got it. But yeah, good point. Anthony, what do you got?
What do I got?
What do you got?
Man, I read this awesome book. It's called Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Done? Written by Harold Schechter, famed true crime writer, and illustrated by Eric Powell of Goon fame. It is nothing you didn't already know about. It's basically, the life of Ed Gein. Growing, I don't, even to this day, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I think it's Gein.
Is
If
it
I'm not
Gein?
mistaken, I believe it's Gein.
Let's call him Mr. Gein.
There you go.
Not to be mistaken with Mr. Bean, who is a delightful chap.
But who
Quite the
also I
opposite.
also hear he wears ladies' faces. So I don't know.
I would imagine so. I guess this thing kickstarted and then got picked up and also mass produced. It is a phenomenal read. It's harrowing in the sense like you see all the horrible shit that Gein goes through as a child, and into his teens, and just constant bullying and whatnot, and you almost feel sorry for him until you start getting to the parts where he's creating suits out of women's skin, and
Yeah.
et cetera, grave robbing, proposed necrophilia. We don't really know, and no one ever will, because he's dead, and he was declared insane and was institutionalized. But the story goes around, I guess it's a retelling of when he basically gets found out as well. So you're seeing the reactions of his neighbors, and and most of this stuff is coming from reporters and whatnot who had interviewed everyone around him, because I guess media kind of descended like vultures as soon as the story broke. So you're getting all these different viewpoints from all the different townsfolks and whatnot, and police officers, and just people that were close to him in general. It is a well-told story. It is not embellished. It is terrifying and sad, very sad. I mean, when you go into child abuse and stuff like that he went through as a kid, that ultimately cracked him. But then it's just it's horrific stuff. It's true crime, and there's nothing more terrifying than the real shit, and that's what this stuff is. However, it is available through Albatross Funny Books. I don't know if you saw the little thing on the back of the book. It said Albatross Funny Books. The book ain't fucking funny. But it is a sensational read. Sean, I know you started reading it. Give me some of your thoughts on it, man.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and typically true crime and especially serial killer stuff, I just don't go near, because it just gets too. It gets too far under my skin. I need a dose of fantasy, and this. So, dude, this, like you said, this is true horror. Like, I mean, the way that they cover his early years and really set up who he is and how he got to be that person based on his mother, the relationship between his mother and his father, the relationship between him and his mother, the relationship between the mother and the brother. It's that even in itself, before you even get to like, oh, I'm killing women and wearing their skin, and just that in it itself is horrible. And then you get after, I'm not going to worry about spoilers because like you said, everybody knows all this anyway for the most part, but after the mother dies, and you see there's scenes of him like he's got, he's helping out on, he gives up their farm, basically just lets it grow over. He doesn't have the ability to keep up with it. So he starts working with neighboring farms as a farmhand, and that's how he sustains himself. And you see him trying to make small talk with the other people working on the farm. And it's like, oh, I read this book about this Hitler or this Nazi guy that made lampshades out of women. Pretty interesting, huh? It's just like, this is his attempt at camaraderie, at like connecting with another person, another human being, because he's so isolated and so afraid of everybody and everything around him. At one point, I think the brother says to him, like, Ma thinks that the whole damn town is a cat house, it's unrealistic or whatever. And he's just so firmly under his mother's thumb. And so this is what I didn't know. I knew all about Ed Gein. I didn't realize, you always hear Psychos based on it. And I never really understood how. Now I understand how. It's the mother, right? Like it's totally Norman Bates and his mother. So that makes sense now to me. But it's Eric Powell's illustrations, as usual, are just gorgeous. And like you said, it's not embellished, but there are times when he shows you what might be in Ed's mind, and it's, man, it's so starkly horrific and beautiful at the same time. It's just, oh man, it's an excellent read.
No, it's fantastic. I like I said, I sat down, I had an hour to kill, and I ran through 90 pages of it. Like it flows so well and keeps you entertained throughout the duration of the read. It's fantastic. I can't wait for you to finish it. But it doesn't go anywhere that you don't know. But it's still, there's still a lot to see. And again, Powell's illustrations are fantastic all the way through.
Yeah, they really are.
It's really is an outstanding book. For those who want to go pick it up, it's $30. It's a bit of a hefty price tag, but
it's independent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a small imprint, Albatross. That might be Powell's imprint. I'm not positive about that, but I feel like it might be. But it's, yeah, you're either way, it's a small company, so you're supporting that. And one final thought. Do you think, I hadn't thought of this, the way you said, so the media descends, and you see it happen, and obviously they did, because there'd never been anything like this. Is Wisconsin in the 50s, right? You think this is where the media and serial killers and the rabid like news cycle that is now, I mean, serial killers are kind of passe, quote unquote, but you think that's where it started? Like, I don't
Absolutely.
know that I don't know the media behaved that way before.
They intentionally went looking for people with it that would tell the most outlandish tales about him.
Yeah.
They wanted people to tell the craziest things that they could imagine, and majority of it was made up. But also a lot of these folks are like, it's a poor town, it's a podunk town. A lot of these writers were probably paying for stories, so they were getting money's worth at that point as well. So
yeah, and anything salacious or it sells, so, and I mean, they even mentioned that that's what Ed was drawn to reading, was anything salacious or just all this weird morbid shit.
Pulp comics. He read pulp comics. He read about headhunters in New Guinea and shrunken heads and stuff like that, where there was always a woman in peril or being murdered or what have you. But all these pulp comics and stuff that he loved. And that was his escape, and unfortunately his actions have had, an impact throughout history and also throughout media. I mean, you see Psycho, and ultimately the character, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is also based on him as well. So thanks, Gein, but
Yeah, at the same time, I wish there was a way we could have gotten those two things without him actually doing what he did.
Exactly.
Because it's
But
pretty fucking awful.
yeah, but again, a fantastic for those that are interested.
It's a possibility that like it was like a snowball effect. I mean, because it was also about the same time as like I forget the name of the actual murders, but the murders that Capote used in cold blood.
Yeah.
So I mean, you just had a kind of snowballing effect of like media and like people knowing like this is the story that people are going to want to hear, so they tell it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it
I
makes
mean,
total sense.
yeah. I mean, and now we live in a time where it's you bring up the point of like it troubles you because you want a little bit of fantasy, and like I think the reason that like most horror is so easy for me to sit and watch, and I find difficulty in the serial killer genre, like the Henrys and the Maniac and Found, is that they have that touch of realism, like especially when you talk about films like Henry, like it goes back to the Gein story of like he's this kid and he just has a terrible family life, and Henry, he keeps telling you throughout the film about terrible things from his personal young life that formed him into this person he is now, and it just becomes too real. I mean, we never know what the young life of Leatherface was, other than maybe he was just this guy who was already probably a little bit messed up in the head, who had a family who encouraged him to do bad things, and to eat people and to wear their skin. And but we never have like we've never been like privy to like a story where like they go back and they're like, here's the grandfather as a young man, and here's him with his grandchildren, here's him with the little kid not yet known as Leatherface, and him like, I don't know, putting him in like in a cage or something, or making him kill animals, and like while he's like crying, he's weeping, and he's making him kill. Like, we haven't been put through that, so he's just this guy who's already there. He's already this killer, and it's a little bit unrealistic. Whereas we have to deal with something that's just a lot more real and shocking. It's hard to sit through. I find it ironic because there's people who like have trouble sitting through horror movies, but will just sit there and watch the true crime stuff.
Yeah, I know, right?
And they'll do it. They'll do it as something that chills them out. They'll do it as like an end of night, like, this is fun. I'm just going to turn on this and listen to this. He was a man. He came to a small town. No one knew who he was, but Patty Larson was never going to be the same when they found her body 5 days later.
Yeah, right.
What?
Right.
That makes you calm? Like, that terrifies me that that's our world. But, whatever, to each his own. Whatever works for you. I'd rather go with something like a vampire that I know can never be real.
Right. It's interesting though, to riff on that for a minute, the idea that it's like you were saying, and I'm not disagreeing, but I'm offering a counterpoint, which is, you said that, with Leatherface, he's just kind of like given to us as this fully formed being, and so it's less realistic. But the funny thing is, the exact opposite is true for Michael Myers, because the original Halloween, you only get that weird, the scene, the opening scene, and then it's just, well, the thing about that movie, people always say when they compare it to Rob Zombie's version, which shows you he tortured animals and this and that, and it kind of, to me, that takes away from the stark terror of this kid just snapped and did this. Like, we didn't see this backstory. So it's weird. It's situational perhaps, but I don't know. It's really interesting because in some ways that does lessen the reality. In other ways, I guess it makes it more robust. So interesting.
Well, I think part of it, I mean, just because if you think about like, I'm gonna have to borrow this or see if I can find a copy for myself and read this book, because it sounds interesting, this graphic novel. But the fact that it starts when he's young, it does a thing exactly like I keep going back to Henry, but it makes me think about Henry. Even a little bit of the original Maniac, because it's it makes them sympathetic. Like they were some poor person who was put through terrible things, and this is what destroyed them. This is what turned them into the mangled, misshapen psyche that they are. That becomes this thing that it becomes acceptable to kill because, hey, that's the way life is. This is what life has taught me. Life has taught me to be harsh. Life has taught me to be ugly. And if things upset me, then this is how life has taught me to deal with it. And it's a lot harder to deal with because they're sympathetic. They're these people that have been through something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's interesting in that, like, look at the origin. Also here's a weird. Okay, in the Ed Gein book, there are scenes, and I think the thing when Anthony said like there's a sadness, or like Ray, you were just saying, the sympathetic, which I feel like is not super there with Ed Gein because of what he ultimately does and the kind of the weird way that he sees everything, which is sad, but also just whatever. But there's these repeated scenes of him curled up on his bed, and just like you can tell he's such a damaged dude, and just was never given any apparatus to navigate the world by his parents at all. And so he turned to just this fantasy world that just unfortunately meant that he, in order to sustain it, he did these terrible things, right? Now look at like a movie like Pieces that starts out trying to give you the reason why, and it's so ridiculous and it's hysterical. And I remember like, I don't even know how long ago. I mean, well, I can remember seeing the box for that at the video store this is before even big box video stores. The General Store in Worth, Illinois, where we lived, was the first place that was by us when we first got a VCR in the early 80s. And that's the place where you went, the fucking General Store. I remember it was like a woman that was probably in her 20s or 30s, and her father ran this business, and it was like whatever a general store sells, they sell. And then they got into VHS, and it became a thing for them, right? Until a big box put them out of business. But I can always remember seeing that box. And at some point in my young life, I heard Ebert, I think it was Ebert and Siskel, talk about this movie and how repulsive it was, the fact that he's like putting together this jigsaw puzzle of the naked woman, and then like they rip it up, and then he gets he rips up the actual woman. It was just, and it's like, dude, are you serious? This is so fucking ridiculous. I mean, again, it's a different time, I guess. They had such a weird, limited perspective on stuff like this because it was newer. So they were all so afraid of it. And like we saw in Censor, like, is this on video? Kids can watch it back and forth and freeze frame and rewind or whatever, and it's going to ruin them. And I don't know. But look, Ed Gein's mother and her bizarre, twisted Christianity did more to damage that person and all the lives around him than a movie ever did. So there you go. That's, once again, I want to look back at these people that were so uptight and uproarious at the time and just be like, really, this is the hill you planted your flag on? Like, you're fucking idiots. But they also, again, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that because they had a limited perspective. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, great book. I can't wait to finish it, man. I'm glad you got a chance to read it. And Chris and I are going to do hopefully something special for that, for Most Horrible Library coming up. So watch for that, folks out there in listener land. I'm going to go back and touch on something I mentioned I had watched the first episode of on our last podcast, and that is Nick Anticosta's brand new Cherry Flavor on Netflix. So we did this 2 Saturdays ago, our last episode, I think. I had watched it the first episode the night before and really liked it. The day after, Sunday, we did the episode. All I did was watch the next 7 episodes. I fucking love this so much. This is gonna be one. I mean, dude, do you remember? I feel like I'm on an episode early in the year. I was saying something like, man, I don't know, last year there was all this stuff to look forward to, and this year I feel like there's not a lot. And now I'm like, everything I watch, I'm like, Jesus, this is like the best thing. Jesus, this is like the best thing. Jesus, this is like the best thing. Brand new Cherry Flavor there's so much man, there's so much like David Lynch in it, but in the right way. And not to diminish like what Nick and Costa does. And I believe it's Lenore Zion is the other. I don't know if they're co-showrunners or creators or whatever, but she's the other name that's up front. And it's based on a book by Todd Grimson, which has been long out of print. I had never even heard of it before. I'm hoping somebody puts it back in print. Pretty sure somebody will. Rosa Salazar plays Lisa Nova, the lead. Catherine Keener is fucking incredible as Boro. And then Eric Lang, Lou Burke. Those are kind of the big three. It's so good. I've never seen some of the shit that it does. I've never fucking seen. There's nothing to compare it to at all. There's tons of body horror. There's a really cool LA vibe. You know, there's times it almost has a Tarantino vibe to it in a way. And then it definitely, if you're a fan of Channel Zero, you'll fucking love it. There's so much just weirdness to it. And oh, the locations are fucking awesome. Catherine Kino Boro, she's like this like urban witch, I guess. I mean, they end up getting to an explanation for her character, but the shit that some of the shit that she does to people, and like, oh my god, dude, there's like, oh, wow, it's just, I've never seen anything like it, and I love everything about it visually, the script, the dialogue, the acting, the camera work, everything. I just love it. So that's like right now my new favorite thing.
I saw the first episode. I need to watch the rest, but yeah, it's good. I was really impressed. I think what it lends, it's the Lynchian flavor to it is one, I think is our lead character, because she's not, how should I put it? She's flawed. She's tainted. And that's just something he does. It's something he has always created. Even going back to Blue Velvet, I mean, Jeffrey seems this just like, standard, American boy, but he has his own little dark fetishes in his closet that he's not even dealing with on his own. And our lead character in this is the same. She's driven, and she wants to achieve fame as a filmmaker, but she's at the same time, she doesn't want to compromise herself. She also is willing to take steps back, but she also knows
she's willing to walk over her friends' corpses to get what she wants.
Yes.
I mean, she's totally amoral. Absolutely amoral.
Yeah. But in a very, I don't know, it's in a great way.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
And it also has that thing of like that Lynch is able to accomplish in most of his films of like, he's one of those few people, and like this does it where like in broad daylight you just have a sense of fear and terror.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, totally.
It's just like, god damn, anything can happen. And he and also it does this thing of introducing characters, like these background characters that you just get a sense of menace from the fucking moment they appear. Just the moment they appear, you're like, god damn, that is someone to be terrified by. The best example of any Lynch film that I can always think of is the homeless person that lives behind the dumpster in Mulholland Drive. Every time that character's
who totally
screen,
feels like Boro.
Boro
feels like
does, yes.
Like I feel like there's influence there. And then the funny thing is,
and the biker,
and the biker. The actor, is it Patrick Fischler, who is the guy in Mulholland Drive who has the dream, and then his therapist or whoever that guy is makes him go out there, and then that's when the dumpster witch accosts them, right? He's then in the last couple episodes of Brand New Cherry Flavor, and I've grown to love him. Everything he's in Twin Peaks of Return, he's in Happy. He's fucking great and Happy. Oh my god, just he's a very good actor. But yeah, so it was cool that they pulled him in too, because I feel like Bordo is almost like Nick Anticosta wanting to say, so what's the deal with this dumpster witch behind this dumpster? Like, let's give her a story. There's so many things about Bordo that remind me of that character. So man, I don't know. I finished it, that Sunday, and immediately by the next day I wanted to watch it again. That has only ever happened with Lynch. Nothing else, I don't think, ever has made me feel like that. So that, to me, that's a big deal. So Ray, what do you got?
It's a movie that I had seen the poster for and like summaries of on a couple different things. I think it was on, and so I finally just sat down and watched it on Arrow, called The Dead Center.
Oh, dude!
Written and directed by Billy Sinise, and it stars Sean Carruth,
Shane Carruth.
Yeah, Shane Carruth.
Who did Upstream Color and Primer.
Yeah, and yeah, but he stars in the film. It's about there's a guy who gets brought in, a dead body, and he's brought into a morgue, and before they can inspect the body, the guy wakes up in the morgue, pops up off the slab, starts walking through the hospital, finds a room with an empty bed with another guy in there already, with somebody in the other bed, curls up into the bed, goes to sleep to warm himself up. The next day, the nurse finds him, and no explanation of who he is. He's naked. They don't know where he came from. They don't, obviously, they're not checking the morgue because they have a live person. So they're like,
exactly.
What's going on? And he's catatonic. And they bring in Shane Carruth's character, who plays Dr. Daniel Forrester, who's a hospital psychologist. And he starts trying to figure out what's going on with this guy, and can't really get anything out of him. And then people start dying in the hospital, and he thinks it's connected to this guy. It has a supernatural element. It's very much of a slow burn. It's very much of an atmosphere film. But it's a good film. I mean, it's interesting. It becomes this thing of the guy, apparently his wife died, and so he attempted to commit suicide. And the attempt of committing suicide is the genesis of what is going on in the film. I don't want to go too far into it and ruin anything, but it's definitely worth checking out. And if you don't have Arrow, it's worth checking out for that.
It's on Prime.
Oh, it's on Prime too?
Okay, or it was. I watched it like a month and a half, 2 months ago. I forgot about it. So I'm glad you brought it up, because I wanted to cover it on here and forgot about it. I fucking loved it. I thought Shane Carruth was fucking awesome.
He's good.
The movie creates this like concentric spiral of tension that just keeps increasing and draws you to the conclusion. Like I just really thought The Dead Center was the perfect title. Now I don't know if that planted the idea in my head, and that's why I interpreted it like this, but I felt like I was swirling into this like just epicenter of total fucking chaos, and that's like where we ended up. So it was, oh man, I really liked everything about this fucking movie.
Yeah,
so well done, so fucking well. And Jeremy Childs, who plays the John Doe, Jesus fucking Christ, dude, oh my god, he's so good. Wow, great movie.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's a good one. It's got great atmosphere. It's very much a slow burn. Maybe I thought about it because it reminds me, and I'm not going to explain why it reminds me. You'll have to watch them both for yourselves out there in listener land. But it reminded me a little bit of The Night House. So
okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
cool. Anthony, what do you got?
I have that movie. I bought it like a year ago. It's been on my watch stack. I have not watched it.
Dude, it's solid.
No bullshit. It's sitting there on a fucking stack of movies up to my knee. I just haven't watched it yet. But I'll have to put a fire under my ass so I can sit down and listen to that one, or watch that one rather. It sounds pretty damn good. Me, I recently picked up a book from Aftershock, and it's a one shot from Peter Milligan, and it is illustrated by Piotr Kowalski, and it's called God of Tremors. And I hate to go back into child abuse, but we're doing it. So if any of y'all are triggered, turn it off. It starts off with this kid. It's a period piece. It's 1900s, late 1900s. This child suffers from epilepsy. His father is like the deacon of a church, very overbearing, very I'm going to beat the demons out of you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So on one hand, he has his mother who's trying to lean towards science, and then on the other hand, he's got his dad who's just wanting to kick the shit out of him every time he has an epileptic fit. It's pretty sad. It's horrible. Anyway, long story short, this kid goes for a walk in the woods one day and finds this totem that starts speaking to him and basically says, I am now your new god. And you listen to me and do what I say, I'll take care of you. Chaos ensues and whatnot. And it ends pretty horrifically for some, and for others, it's great. But it's a good quick read. It's a one shot, and it's presenting a really beautiful prestige format from Aftershock. $6.99 price tag, definitely worth the read, definitely worth the buy. It is it's pretty cool. There's a lot, like I said, there's realistic horror stuff in it, and then there's the supernatural horror stuff that happens in it that keeps you entertained. It's a good read though. It's pretty awesome.
I love that now more people are doing what DC started with the Black Label, which is that like prestige format where it's not just thicker, but it's it's wider. It's like the magazine. I don't know what the actual term for it that format is, but I other than it being frustrating with bags and boards because it's not going to fit in your conventional bag and board. Although obviously now they make them for that as well. But yeah, I saw that book. I didn't pick it up, and I probably should have. I really like a lot of Peter Milligan. So it looks cool.
Did he write Hellblazer for a time?
He did.
Okay.
God, he's written so many
and
things.
Hellboy as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that could be. That I can't confirm or deny that, but definitely I wouldn't doubt it at all. That would be his, playground, his forte.
Yeah, but it's done really well. I recommend it. Aftershock's been knocking it out of the park lately with their stuff. They've been doing really well, especially in the horror genre.
Yeah, nice. Let's see. I'm gonna go to. I watched the first 2 episodes of the new American Horror Story. So not American Horror Stories, the anthology spinoff. I did watch some of those and liked some and didn't. I'm not going to talk about those right now. But the new, double feature, season 10, right, was delayed a year because of COVID. They dropped 2 episodes. So first of all the imagery associated with this, it's plastered all over LA, and it's a vampire and a alien making out or doing whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think the double feature thing is that the season is going to be half one story, half another story. That's what it looks like, which is good because one of the complaints I always have about American Horror Story is they tend to go on too long. Not in all cases. Roanoke comes to mind, 10 episodes in and out, perfect. But so the first 2 episodes the story is called Red Tide. So I think that's the first feature. And it's vampires. It is possibly my most favorite take on vampires ever. The way there's a scene where Evan Peters explains to Finn Wittrock, which is just a name that I just can't believe. No disrespect, because he's a great actor, but Finn Wittrock, it's just a great name. When Evan Peters explains kind of how this has happened, it's wonderful. It has nothing to do with any historical approach to vampirism or whatever. It's totally fresh and new, and it really fucking works. It's very cool. And it takes place in Cape Cod in the off season. So there's early on, there's it's Finn Wittrock is a writer who has done some like TV work, but basically his agent's like, look, if you want to keep writing in TV, you need to come up with your own thing. So write a pilot. So he's got an idea for a pilot. It's him and his wife and their young daughter move to Cape Cod in the off season. They rent this house, and he's gonna write his pilot, and he has no inspiration. A lot of shades of The Shining, where it's like constantly him in front of the laptop, and you just see the cursor blinking, and he's not writing anything. He's drinking, and his wife, who is played by, I will tell you in just a second, I can't believe I'm not remembering her goddamn name. She's in every Lily Rabb. His wife, Lily Rabb, is like a decorator that works through Instagram. I don't totally understand Instagram. It's the kind of thing that alienates me even more from it. She has these clients that they're staying in this house free, so she can like she can like fix up the house or redecorate the house or whatever, for whatever. And the daughter's is very young and classically is like obsessed with being first chair in some orchestra by the time she's like 17. So they're all kind of artistic and they're driven. And they go there, and there's like nobody at Cape Cod at this time of year. So it's just desolate. There's just very few people. And he meets these other writers, and they're famous. One's a famous playwright, and one's a famous novelist that works under a pseudonym. And then there's also like these very almost Nosferatu-esque, like just animalistic vampires that pop up all over the town just occasionally. And it just goes from there. I don't want to say too much. I may have said too much already, but I'm really thinking I just really like it so far. 2 episodes in, I'm very much looking forward to the next episode. So yeah, it's always nice when I like this show, because I always want to like American Horror Story, and sometimes I don't. So
see, what is Red Tide on? I mean, you said it's on FX, but do they have it on Hulu?
It's on Hulu. So you just have to
Okay.
find season 10, because I believe my friend Missy just had this trouble too when I recommended it to her. Like, I think it's just called season 10 on Hulu. And it is kind of confusing that they're advertising this as double feature as the name of the season, like Hotel or Roanoke. But when you look at the episodes, like the first episode of the season is called like Cape Fear, I think, and the second one is like Pale. And then there's the Red Tide is the story. So there's like multiple titles for everything. It's kind of a little confusing, but overall, if you look at double features of presentation, Red Tide is the name of the first feature, and then the individual episode titles, if that makes any sense. But it is on Hulu. I believe they air on FX on Wednesday, and they're available when like Thursday at 12 a.m., on Hulu. So
Interesting to see what that explanation is.
It's good.
Well, in a related note, I watched Jacob's Wife, because that finally hit Shudder. I've been wanting to see that. It's great.
Yeah,
it's
it really
fantastic. I think one of the things I liked so much about it was not only that it has Barbara Crampton, who's starring in the lead role, and she's great. She's so fucking great. She's fantastic in the movie, and so perfectly cast. She's just this. She's an older woman who's married to this church minister, and she's I think her old ex-boyfriend puts it rather well. She's just this church mouse, very meek, very used to living the life of this minister, and basically through weird circumstance runs into a vampire, gets bitten, and starts to become a femme fatale. And she's fucking great. Like, she's very good at playing this like meek, like cowering woman. And then when she starts to become the femme fatale, she's sexier, she's more vibrant, she's a lot angrier and aggressive. And she's fantastic. And plus, I had to look it up, because Barbara Crampton is in her. She had to be like in her 60s. She had to be like 60 when she made the film, because she's 62 now. She looks fantastic.
Yeah,
just absolutely fantastic. And for those out there who are fans of her from the past, yeah, there is a topless scene, and they are magnificent. It sounds weird to say it, But I mean, she was so known for nudity in the past in horror movies
Fair enough.
that like she has this nude scene, she has this like topless scene in this movie, and wow, those cannot be the breasts of a 60-year-old woman because they're fantastic. But she's paired with, of all people, Larry Fessenden.
Yeah, and he's
The
also
other
fucking
lead, her
fantastic.
husband, and he's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
which that's not the first time they've been a
so.
couple on screen either. Because what is it?
True? What's the other one?
Is it? Isn't it? Aren't they a couple in? We're still here.
No, they're not the couple.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
He's the
You're
husband
right.
to the other. It's the other woman,
right.
and she's
Sorry.
yeah. But they're both in that movie. They so work in this, and like, I was worried that like, knowing going in that like I knew he was in it, I knew that she was in it, I knew that it was like sure becoming a vampire. That like at some point she was just gonna kill him off, but thankfully that doesn't happen. Like, little spoilers for the ending, but like thankfully he's there for the majority of the film, and I was so happy because his character evolves too and goes through a whole story arc, and he's I mean he's easy to dislike because he's this minister, so he's a little bit holier than thou. He does a lot of mansplaining and interrupting of his wife, and just doesn't listen to her. Yeah, but he goes through his own story arc, and he becomes a more sympathetic character and a likable character. But yeah, I thought it was really entertaining. It's darkly funny, and it surprised me because it has a real female empowerment message. And I was not expecting that. The horror movie genre, I mean, the vampire genre is just so rife with women getting turned into vampires, especially in the old Hammer days, and then just like going off and starting to kill people slowly over time. And then like, we just have to get rid of this devil. And then like, but it has this message of like, well, maybe the reason that this is so alluring to you is because it's giving you more power, and being a regular woman has left you with less power.
Yeah,
and this is
well said.
This is the ability to even the scales, and yeah, it's fantastic. It's so worth a watch, and to see two horror powerhouses in the same film doing such a great job against each other or with each other is great.
And also it's interesting. Who plays the master is Bonnie Aarons, who is the dumpster witch in Mulholland Drive.
Really?
Or dumpster bum, whatever. Yeah.
Dumpster bum.
She's also the nun, which I still haven't seen, but yeah. So she's she's great in it too as the master. I thought that they did a really good job with that. Anthony, what do you got?
Now let's talk Never Hike in the Snow.
Oh, yes.
Snow. Womp Stomp Films, their sequel to Never Hike Alone, which is, a fan Friday the 13th film, which was pretty fucking awesome considering I don't like the majority of most Friday the 13th films and or slashers. So they've done a really good job. Their director, Vincent DeSanti, who also stars in the films as Jason Voorhees.
It does a great fucking job.
Yeah, and so this film is the follow-up, and it's, another idiot finds his way into fucking Camp Blood or Camp Crystal Lake, and guess who's got to go handle some fucking business.
Yep.
And yeah, you get Jason hunting this dude down in the fucking snow. It's a half-hour flick. If you got time, it's on YouTube, free of charge. If you backed it on what was it, Kickstarter or GoFundMe? Was it? I don't remember which one it was.
No, it was Kickstarter. I'm pretty sure.
Was it Kickstarter? Yeah.
Yeah, they're both up there because they have to not make profit from them. So and I waited to watch it because I wanted to get my Blu-rays. So once I got them, I watched them.
Definitely. Yeah, and they're cool flicks. And DeSanti plays a kick-ass Voorhees once again.
Yeah.
can't go into too much about it because I mean it's only a 30-minute short, but it's available out there. It's streaming on YouTube free of charge. For those that were lucky enough to back it and get the Blu-rays, they're fucking welcome additions to whatever Friday the 13th collection you do have at home. And especially considering we just had a Friday the 13th, it was the film that I watched on Friday the 13th. So
That's
very
awesome.
happy to have that in the collection and to have watched it. And from what I heard, from what I saw from DeSanti on a recent live stream on Friday the 13th, actually, he talked about how this is going to be the jump to a new feature-length film that he'll be doing crowdfunding for shortly. So I'm looking forward to where this goes. It's gonna be fun. I mean, that's the one thing I can say about it is they're using practical effects. The kills are fucking great.
Yeah.
And DeSanti's, Voorhees stocks with the best of them. And I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, definitely. And well, and also the fact that they the end of the first one, Never Hike Alone, brings back Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis, who
Yep.
I don't know what number in the original Friday the 13th. So he was also Freddy in Return of the Living Dead. So I don't know what he was Tommy Jarvis in one or two of the original ones, and so it's a big deal to bring him back, and it's and he has more of a role in this one.
Which one it was? I just remember they dug him up. They stuck a
yeah, that one. I think it's 6. Might be 6, 5 or 6. That was one I saw as a kid, and I always thought it was just asinine. Like, wait, they're digging him up to make sure he's dead, and ramming the metal rod and then the lightning, and there you go. Well, you kind of did that to yourself, buddy.
Earlier incarnations of Jarvis were famously portrayed by it was Feldman, Corey Feldman.
Yeah, Feldman. I think they
Feldman
need to bring back
in this movie.
Yes, no, he's not. He's not. He's not. I think they should bring back Crispin Glover's character, even though I'm pretty sure he died. But I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him dance again. So maybe somebody could dig up his character's corpse and put a lightning rod in it, and get up and dance. I really like this. I was telling you, I was taken aback by the fact I knew it was 30 minutes, but like where it stops, I was like, wait, what the fuck? And then you were, then you had told me, oh, this is just like basically like it. So I feel like people should look at this as the 0 issue for the upcoming feature, because I guess the feature is going to be, because this leaves like all these loose threads. It's like, I just didn't get it at first. And then of course, when you explain that there's going to be another one and it'll be longer and Matthews will be back again, I'm like, okay, now everything makes sense. But yeah, it's really well done. It's got a great opening. Just in general, I really liked it. So I think Womp Stomp is pretty cool.
They did a really cool music video too from I think his name's Trevor Vaughn. He did a song for the soundtrack, and the song's called Disappear. And DeSanti is I think they filmed it all during Never Hike in the Snow. But there's it's just this cool video of like Jason sitting in his room, his mom's head's next to him, next to his bed, just sitting there waiting. And then he hears, laughter by the lake, gets up, goes out, starts hunting these kids down. And it's brutal. The kills are fucking great. If you have a chance, definitely check out Trevor Vaughn's Disappear. It's directed by DeSanti. It's fucking cool. It's just like, what do you see Jason do on his downtime? And it's in there. It's fucking rad.
That's not an extra on the disc, is it?
It actually is.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna watch it.
It's on Never Hike in the Snow. It's on there, but it's also on YouTube again for those who didn't back the project.
Yeah. If you didn't back it, definitely check them out on YouTube. They're not pirated or whatever. Like I said, these are fan films, and the way they get around, you cease and desisted or sued is like there's disclaimers. They're making no money off of it. It's a labor of love, and you could tell it's really well done. And I agree with you. I prefer them over 90% of what's in the actual canon for the, and hey, I'd love to see, I think the legal shit is maybe over, although I feel like I've heard that before and it wasn't, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if we do get another Friday the 13th, I would think that DeSanti, I would love to see him actually helm a major
Absolutely.
one. So you never know.
Absolutely. Um, and then another thing too, for those that missed out, when they do kickstart the new one, they usually add as perks like the older Blu-rays that are out of print. They'll do another run of them, so you might get a second chance to get the first and second film on Blu-ray again or on DVD or whatever. Sometimes they do like cool VHS copies for collectors out there. So they always have really rad perks. And I anticipate them having like a third or fourth print of Never Hike Alone, and second and third print for Never Hike in the Snow. So I mean, you will probably have another chance again to get these. Jump on it when they get announced, and we'll definitely announce it. And we'll definitely inform y'all when they do get announced. So for those that aren't in the know, you will know here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's how I got my Never Hike Alone, because you were the one originally. I think you talked about that on one of the first episodes of this podcast, that first movie. And then at that point it was out. So I think we watched it on YouTube, and then I didn't see it again until when I backed this and then got the Blu-rays. So I watched them almost back to back recently. And I like them both quite a bit. So definitely. I watched Maximiliano Contenti's The Last Matinee, aka Red Screening. So this is a neo giallo. I believe filmed in let's see, I believe it was Argentina. No, Uruguay. I'm sorry, it's from Uruguay. Filmed in Uruguay, and it takes place in 1993. And what you have is a small, not a like a family-owned cinema, and the daughter, who's about college age, is filling in for her father, who is usually the projectionist. And there's a few, you kind of get your preamble where you see these various, there's two male teenagers and a girl teenager, the friends. They go in, there's an old guy, there's a young kid that hid out to stay in this theater to watch, they're watching God, this movie, I'm pretty sure it's a real movie. It's a Frankenstein movie I had not heard of before. But anyway, a killer comes in, lowers the roll cage doors, the metal door, breaks something off in it so nobody can get out, and then just starts killing everybody. And I really liked it. It wasn't exactly what I expected. And the thing with it is visually, it's beautiful, great soundtrack. It's the colors and everything you expect visually and sonically from a giallo. It also spends a lot of time, and somewhat a little bit cumbersomely, trying to be true to the giallo kind of pacing and tone. And I feel like it gets into a little bit of trouble doing that. But overall, it's worth it. And like it you kind of have this thing where you're like, okay, we've spent a little bit too much time getting to know these people. Let's start fucking picking them off. And the fucking gore is great, and it gets better. Like as each kill, it gets more and more involved. And then also like nobody's safe. So that was cool too. And there's obviously, you're going to get impressions of demons, just because of the theater. And I don't know, I really liked it. I expected to be a little bit more like blown the fuck away and couldn't stop talking about it. And I wasn't, but that's not to say I think it's great. It's a $5 rental on Prime right now. Totally worth it. I'm pretty sure it'll be on Shudder in like a month. And it definitely, like, I want to see what else this director does. I don't know. I think he's got a lot of talent, and I can't wait. So
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As with most giallos, they kind of play out like whodunits also, because the killer isn't revealed towards the end. So how do they work that into a small setting like a movie theater?
You know who it is. I feel like they thought around that problem. Like, okay, we're going to do that. And they don't, because the first person you meet is the killer.
Okay.
So you see him sitting in his car, and he's got a big jar of olives, and he like kind of, and it's mostly like the olive juice with like bits and pieces of the olive. He like reaches in and gets an olive and then eats it, like, and it's like close-ups, and it's really gross. And then the jar comes into play later, because he collects things from his victims, and eats them. So yeah, so I appreciate that they did it that way, because it would have been, I really feel like they thought about exactly the way you asked it, like that is a common trope in giallo, and they just didn't. It remind me a little bit of Cold Hell, where like there's no point, who the killer in Cold Hell is the whole time. That's kind of part of the beauty of it. So I really liked that about it too.
I'm in. I'll check it out.
It's worth watching. And like I said, the pacing, just be ready for the pacing. It takes a little bit. And speaking of pacing, why don't we go into what we both just watched, and that is Jordan Graham's Sator. So Anthony, what'd you think?
Thought it was good. It's good, Shudder does their homework every once in a while, and then they throw something good out there. No disrespect to Shudder, maybe a little. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, it's picturesque. It is well acted. It is creepy and unnerving in the sense that you've seen cabin in the woods type films before, and I don't think you ever feel this alone, and I don't think you ever feel this like this element of being watched.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that we just talked about Friday the 13th movie where there's Jason watching you in the woods, but this film has these performances in it, and I'm still not clear on the woman who was it his mother or
it's his grandmother, the character Noni. So apparently in 1968, and he didn't know this when he started. So I was reading this interview with him today with Jordan Graham, and he said basically, so he did everything for this fucking movie. If you look at the first credit screen that comes up, dude, literally everything, every fucking thing. And it took him 7 years to do it, including hold on one second. Oh God, where was this? There was this fact I saw that fucking blew me away. Not only did he do everything, he spent 7 years making this film. He had to learn how to use color. He had to learn how to color grade the film in DaVinci Resolve, which is the program he used to color grade it. It took him 1,000 hours. Like, dude, holy fuck. He built the fucking cabin. He built that cabin. That's insane. Like, oh my God. And he controlled everything. And he talked in this interview about, like, he didn't have the money. He had the money to make the movie, but he didn't really have a lot of money to pay people to help him. And he didn't want to like borrow favors and stuff like that. So outside of his cast, which is small and all great, he did everything. So but I mean, the fact that he built the fucking cabin. But so back to what you said. So he used his grandmother who was suffering from dementia. And as he was using these scenes with her, she was becoming, obviously, like, it's a disease that accelerates. And so he like at some point, like, it was becoming untenable to use her. But there's a scene in it where the brother Pete sits down and she's like, "Oh, who are you?" And he's like, "I'm your grandson, blah, blah, blah." That was the first time that the actor that played Pete had actually met Jordan Graham's grandmother. And so they just played it like natural. There's so many fascinating things about the way that Jordan Graham made this movie. But yeah, so she had dementia, and he used this footage with her talking. And the thing is, what he found out is in 1968, his grandmother had this experience with a Ouija board where she contacted Sator, and then shortly after spent, I forget how many days, just doing automatic writing. She wrote like hundreds or thousands of pages, and it was all the stuff that supposedly Sator had told her. And so she had a relationship, and then she was institutionalized after. She had a lifelong relationship from 1968 on with this entity, whether or not it really existed, or it was just in her mind. And it's so fascinating. But he uses that. Oh my God, it's wow. Anyway, sorry, I just totally had to nerd out
No.
over that because I just was blown the fuck away.
Absolutely. As an indie film, you can tell what he has to work with, and his budget went to the right places. I think I felt location was fantastic. I felt his camera work was fantastic. I felt he spent a good amount of money on a nice camera to make this thing work, because
he did.
They're beautiful. His areas where he shot in are just gorgeous, and the shit he did with this camera, beautiful. It's amazing. However, it is a slow burn.
Oh yeah,
it does suffer from pacing issues. I believe I told you earlier today, it does take some endurance to get through it, but I felt the payoff was worth it. That seems to be, the way of the genre these days. It's, they're all slow burns these days. However, this one is effective. But this is his first film.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Amazing first film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Amazing first film. But I think I sat through it. I felt bad because I was watching some of this on my phone. I think I watched maybe the first like 30-40 minutes on my phone. I'm like, you can't enjoy this. You can't watch this film and enjoy it like this. Like you have to watch it on your television.
Yeah.
Specifically like in a dark room where you can fully allow yourself to be like enveloped in this loneliness that he created, using the forest around this cabin and even around his family. Everybody does a fantastic job as far as acting goes. Everybody, I don't know anyone, but they all came with their A game and they all did a fantastic job. But solid fucking movie. Check it out. It's on Shudder. If you're paying for it, watch it.
Yeah, definitely. There's an interview. I'll try to remember to put the link to this interview in the show notes, but flickeringmyth.com did an interview with Jordan Graham, and he said, on this film, I was using some decent equipment. I'm used to shooting on DSLR cameras, and I'm used to the dynamic range on those, but in terms of capturing the forest, it's awful. The sun peeking through is either overexposed or underexposed. And so I'm reading this because one of the things about this, I'm watching this, I'm like, holy fuck, he's shooting. It's all natural light. There's so many outdoor shots. It's all natural light. So it's no wonder it took him so fucking long to film this thing, because you'd have, today we have this light and we have it for this amount of time.
Yeah, your magic hour. That's it. Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, whether it's magic hour or not, it's like whatever he got, he would only have that time, and then it would be gone, and he'd have to either film something else that day or come back to it the next day. And I thought that was fascinating. And I'm like, there's no way so I don't know if he doesn't say if he used film or not. I don't necessarily know that it looks like film, but it's definitely like, it's a nice fucking camera, because
definitely
there's just some shots. They capture the isolation and the regal glory of these forests. That there's like one shot where he's standing on this, like, it looks like a log, and then you realize, I think it pans back, and it's literally like this whole patch of these trees that has just been somehow uprooted and tipped over. I'm like, is this the redwoods? I don't think it is. I forget what the filming locations were. Santa Cruz, California, and Yosemite Valley, Yosemite National Park, California. So another thing I wanted to comment on is, I think one of the things that adds to the pacing in both, like, I think an effective way, but what can make it a little difficult at times, it's so fucking quiet. And it's so funny. He said one of the big inspirations for this movie was No Country for Old Men. And I could so fucking see it, because No Country for Old Men, when I saw that in the theater in 2007, I will always say that movie was such a quiet movie. And he even references this scene that always stuck with me as being so effective because of how quiet it is. And it's the one where Brolin goes back to, he fills up the water jugs and goes back to the scene of the crime. And it's just, there's just such a creeping menace to the quiet, and that's he applies that here, and like there's no cues that something is going to happen. So, and sometimes nothing does happen. So that like makes this weird world of the film when you're watching it, where like you never know when something's going to happen. There's nothing that's going to warn you, and like you might feel like because of what's on screen something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, because it's quiet, and then it's still quiet, and then later something does happen. But so you have no frame of reference sonically, and it adds to like a lingering, intensifying paranoia that just comes through. And also that main actor, I think the main character's name is Adam, and it's I think it's Gabriel Nicholson. He's so emotive with his face, like, and not in like in exaggerated fashions either. He says a lot with a little, and just there's just these little. Did you notice the thing? There's the Evie character, and sometimes they do this thing to her voice. I don't know if you noticed it. Like it's really fucking effective. Where you're like, wait a minute, who is this person real?
So I questioned that a couple of times. I was like, okay, is this a caretaker? Is this? And then I've said, well, wait a minute, but then you don't see the brother have any interaction with her.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started to ask myself, I go, is she imaginary? Who the fuck is this person? But yeah, I did notice something along those lines.
It's really interesting. And like I need to watch it again to kind of untangle. I don't even know that I understood the familial. It's all about a family, right? And so I don't know that I understood some of the context of what was happening. I mean, I got enough from it, but there's certain things where I'm like, wait, so who is this person to who, and blah blah blah. But ultimately, I really enjoyed it as in like an experience viewing it. I just thought it was fucking fabulous. Real quick, I want to go back and say one thing about American Horror Story Red Tide I didn't say before, and that's so. Listeners, if you haven't listened to the episode Ray and I did with Professor John Trafton from Seattle University, where we did a deep dive on Messiah of Evil from 1973, American Horror Story Red Tide is totally riffing off of Messiah of Evil at times. The desolation of the seaside. So first of all, I love this thing where like I've really gotten into seaside horror over the last couple months, and Messiah of Evil had something to do with it, but also Joe Bob playing both, what is it, Dead and Buried and Humanoids from the Deep, which is a movie I always dismissed and then loved. But I've really been thinking like, oh man, the seaside horror, I'm really getting a thing for this, and then they're doing it with Red Tide. And also there's a scene where like the character goes into the supermarket, and it's an empty supermarket, and there's the fucking open meat case, and he just starts pulling. He doesn't start feeding on it there, but he buys a bunch of the meat, and it just, there's no way they weren't riffing on Messiah of Evil. So I thought that was super cool. I love that kind of synchronicity. But definitely I implore anybody that hasn't listened to that yet. I love that. And the newest episode of John Trafton and Miles Fortune's This Movie Saved My Life is great too. They do an all-nighter. It was just really cool. John opens with a movie. I was like, I can't believe you opened with this. Anyway, Ray, what do you got?
I don't have anything else, I think, but I did want to throw something out there, and that was to go back to something that Anthony used to do back in the day, and that is just a little, like maybe just a final thought or an interesting question. And I'm actually going to borrow from what you posted. So if you're out there in listener land and you comment on the Facebook posts, Sean asked the other day, what is your favorite slasher film? Which I thought was an interesting question. For me, it was a multi-layered answer, and it's because, of the major characters, and what I mean by that is that you have your Halloweens, you have your Texas Chainsaw Massacres, those kind of things, and those are the major characters that everyone gravitates towards. And of the major characters, probably mine is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Because it's just so fantastic. It's funny. It's great. I no slight against the original film. I just think it's so entertaining and quality. That's one of my favorites. But I have to break it up into different genres of slasher films, because like that's like of the major characters, that's my favorite. Of the like kind of smaller, low budget, niche cult slasher films. Oh man, I said the other day that it was Doom Asylum, which I do like. I do like quite a bit, but it's a hard one because of the slasher movies. I actually kind of enjoy. Like I haven't. No, this isn't a slam, but I've just never watched through all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I've never watched through all the Friday the 13th. I tend to like the smaller things, like these little cult ones, a lot more. And of those, Doom Asylum is really good, but then Slumber Party Massacre is so good too.
Well, one or two.
So excellent.
Because two is
God,
nuts.
if I have to pick between the two, one is the better film.
Okay.
Two has the better killer. But one is a good movie. I mean, it's such a perfect slasher movie. It's a slumber party, and he's just this escaped crazy person with a drill attacking these girls at a slumber party. And he can't get more perfectly slashed than that.
That's true.
And of the neo slashers, I think probably the first Fear Street.
Yeah, I can
because
see that.
not to take away anything from Scream, because Scream is really good. Scream is really good, but that first Fear Street is it knows everything that's come before it. It even knows Scream, because it employs I forget her name right now, but oh shit, the one who has the famous mother, who's also from she's like the first kill in the first Fear Street. I can't remember her name right now.
Oh my God. Seriously?
Yeah, it's happening
Jesus
to you too
Christ.
right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, she's in Donnie Darko.
Oh my goodness.
The Wedding Singer, Drew Barrymore. Jesus Christ.
Well, she's the pull in for Scream. And
you're talking about the Fear Street. Sorry, it's Ethan Hawke's daughter, Maya Hawke.
Yeah, Maya Hawke. But it actually does the same. It actually cleverly references that when you think about it. It's references to Scream, and then it pulls in Maya Hawke, and you look at her and you go, "Oh, she's going to be in this whole thing. She's probably about the biggest name in this whole thing. She's going to be in this whole movie." Nope, we're killing her off in the first 5 minutes. And it's a lot like Scream. I remember going to see Scream in the theater, sitting there and thinking, "Oh my God, they just killed off Drew Barrymore's character. Like, her character is straight up dead, disemboweled. There's no way she's coming back. This isn't her movie. She's all over the poster."
Which is an
Holy
homage
shit.
to Psycho.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But yeah,
I just remember being elated that I didn't have to watch her act through a whole film.
I like Drew Barrymore, but I don't know.
She's great in E.T.
Yeah, I just want to throw it out here right now and say, like,
cool.
Anyone else? Like, Anthony, I know you said you're not a fan of the slasher genre, but like, if you could pick, if you have to pick, what would you say are things
it's
that you
easy for
really
me.
like?
Michael Myers, number one. Quick runner-up is the Prowler.
I still haven't seen that. I need to see that.
Ooh, good pick.
Yeah, Prowler's probably like
one.
second favorite slasher, easily. And it's another one of those ones that's, it was never franchised or anything like that. And
yeah,
I really like
it's just the one-off.
And the kills in that was fantastic.
Now, when you say Michael Myers, do you mean all the Halloween films, like 5 and 6?
I'm weird about that. I like 1, 2, 3. I don't like 4. I don't like 5. I tune in again during 6. I don't like 7. I don't like 8. The zombie ones, the first one was okay. The second one was, I don't know what that was. And then as far as the new trilogy that's coming out, Sean hit the nail on the head earlier, where it was a better cinematic experience. opposed to watching it again at home. I think I was able to unpack it more and kind of pull it apart. I was like, yeah, there's a bunch of shit in here I don't like, and here's why. But I've discussed that on past episodes before. But so yeah, I love the original Halloween '78 and Prowler. Prowler's great.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
I guess I'd have to say Halloween '78. It's just so simple and perfect and effective, and I have a nostalgia trigger with it, and it just can't be beat. But it's almost like maybe when people say, "What's your favorite John Carpenter movie?" I never say Halloween, and I never say Big Trouble in Little China, because I just feel like just pull them out of they're just so magnificent. Just let's just talk about the other movies, and so then it's Prince of Darkness. So I kind of feel like slasher wise, let's just remove Halloween from the mix. And I actually, I don't know. I really like The Burning. I love the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I don't know. I mean, but I also I do want to go The Burning makes me want to go the route that Ray has gone and kind of find some of these more niche ones and try them out or whatever. And I love the Slumber Party Massacre 2. I'm not even sure I've seen the first one. There's a bunch of stuff I watched in rapid succession where it's I'm like, it didn't stick. So I'm not sure if I've seen it. I should watch it again and see.
Oh, it's
2 stands out because it's just what the I feel like I did watch
it is
one.
What the fuck.
I feel like I did watch one, but when I watched 2, it just blew one out of my mind because I was like, what is going on right now with the fucking rockabilly thing? And just that movie is just such a strange, just everything about it is such a strange texture. The house they're in, the neighborhood, the girls themselves, the band, it's just so fucking weird to me. There's just something about it. It's I'm sure at the time it would have seemed artificial and put together and phony, but it doesn't feel like that now. It feels like such a spot on example of what was going on in slasher films at that moment, but then plus shit that you would never expect to see in one. So I don't know, it's just so weird. But yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff out there. Prowler I need to see, because that's Savini did I always read references to his effects in that. What's the other one? What's the one with Madman? I've only seen parts of that. I need to see that as well.
Which one?
Madman. It's another one I think that uses the Cropsey legend, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one in the woods with the old farm. Yes.
Madman Mars. Yeah.
Prowler's better. You saw Burning. You saw. So I'd say follow it with Prowler.
Okay.
I feel like Madman's a better watch. And unfortunately, it's not on there anymore. But if you can catch it as part of the Joe Bob presentation, it's good.
That's what I wanted. Because
otherwise,
it's not on there.
It's not it's one of those ones where it's a so good it's bad.
Yeah.
No, so bad it's good. I'm sorry.
So bad. No, I knew what you meant.
It's got some moments that are really interesting and really fun as far as slasher movies goes, but it's also oh boy, what the hell are you making me put up with? I believe, if I remember correctly, there's a musical moment where this guy serenades this girl.
Oh wow. And
you're sitting there, and the thing is that Madman Mars is supposed to be in the shadows watching him from bushes, and you're just please let him just come out of the bushes and murder this guy at this moment right now, because I really don't want to listen to him singing. And he doesn't come until later, and you're like,
oh,
what
man,
whose choice was it to let this guy free ball on this fucking song? You're like, oh no.
Nice.
Slumber Party Massacre, though, the first one is pretty good. I think it really preys on the concept that they probably knew, because my sister was was a child in the 80s, just as I was, but she went to a lot of slumber parties, and I would ask her, and she would say that a lot of what they watched at slumber parties after mom and dad went to bed at her friend's house was they turn on Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, that kind of thing, and turn it on, and she would usually sleep or like not, or like hide under something or go do something else, and some of the girls would watch it, and they would watch it purposely to scare themselves as they were all hanging out together and scream at stuff as they're watching it. And it clearly was this movie that was made knowing that that was the audience that was going to be watching the films. So they make this film that it's literally a bunch of girls decide, let's have a slumber party. And at the same time, let's have a slumber party. They decide to do this and talk about it. This guy has escaped from the local sanitarium. He has gained access to a drill, a big ass drill, and he decides that's how he's going to spend his Friday night, is terrorizing these girls at a slumber party.
Man,
and killing people that randomly show up, like the pizza guy and the guys that are coming to try and make out with them. It's so simple in its concept, and it's fantastic.
I now I know I've seen it because I remember the scene with the pizza guy, but I need to watch it again. Maybe I'll do that very soon. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's good. It's good.
Well, okay, let's end it there. So, gents, good to see you again, and good to have another episode. And we'll be back soon with more the Horror Vision. But until then, I'm Sean.
I'm Abhorrent Anthony.
And I'm Rockin' Ray.
Rockin' Ray.
Rockin' Ray. It's my DJ name.
No, oh, that's a terrible. I'm not hiring you. I think I know his name, but I just want to be right.
Tony Danza.
Angela.